With the current landscape and changes in the administration, voices of criticism speaking out against what is currently happening across the United States are seldom seen or heard. This has led to a rise in more independent journalists and independent reporting not aligned with mainstream media. These figures and leaders are becoming more prominent as voices not only for veterans, but service members and all underrepresented communities being affected that have had little or no voice for years. But what does it mean when your time as a military leader shaped to command forces as a career ends and brings you to the social media landscape to become an advocate for these communities? In this episode, I am joined by not only a fellow service member, but one of the role models that shaped my military career so far. After growing up in Fayetteville, Georgia in the 80s, being given the opportunity to study at a prestigious school in the Atlanta region, he recounts his time in the Naval Academy and his 20-plus year career as a naval officer. Retiring as a commander, he co-hosts one of these independent podcasts with another fellow service member, dissecting the roles, leadership decisions, and opinions going on not just in the US, but also with international events. We explore his points of view in the immigration raids, his thoughts on the current state of the nation, and unfiltered and much required analysis of what it means to not only be a black man but a minority fighter, and the endeavors he has experienced while also speaking out during these trying times as a journalist. En mi comunidad. So welcome back to the ESL sessions on this, another episode of En mi comunidad, in my community. And on today's episode, I actually have a really anticipated interview that I've been wanting to do for a couple years. And it's another special interview because one, not only is this individual another service member, but they were also a very influential person within my naval career. They were also a reason for a lot of the ways that I actually did go about looking at the Navy after my first reenlistment, which I think we'll actually touch on that. And just in general, he was actually my executive officer at my first command aboard USS Anzio. And like I said, I wanted to do this interview for a good while. But before we get into anything specific out of that, I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself, and then we'll get started with the interview. So whenever you're ready.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. My name is Bobby Jones, Commander, United States Navy, retired a couple of years now. Originally from Fayetteville, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. And, you know, I spent, counting school, 26 years in the Navy, got out, and now I'm president of Veterans for Responsible Leadership. It's a nationwide super PAC where we try to find candidates that are veterans to run for public office, help them, and to advocate for, responsible leadership, which seems to be lacking a lot these days. And then, also my day job, I'm putting together a all-boys public charter school in the Metro Atlanta area for young men who we need to help shape and give them viable options for their future. Greater Atlanta Preparatory School. So, despite being retired, I'm kind of busy. It's been interesting, but I'm happy to be here. Good to see you, Dimitri. I mean, you haven't aged a day, but you can tell that you matured. So I'm glad to see that. And you're out there in Nevada. So obviously you're doing pretty well here, taking advantage of what the Navy has offered you.
No, yeah, sir. Actually, I'm actually still stationed in Virginia. I'm actually getting out in December. So I'm here on the East Coast still. But yeah, I mean, hopefully at the end of the service, I'll probably go back to Nevada. But who knows? With everything that's like currently going on, it's a lot of up in the air. So
yeah, I understand that. A lot of uncertainty, even in the military right now. And that's kind of why, I've gotten into the podcast space and started doing these social media things where, trying to provide reasonable, rational thought to a lot of the chaos that has happened here recently. And a lot of people are suffering from fear of the unknown, fear of actions, fear, to be completely blunt and honest, that is disproportionately affecting certain segments of the community more than others. And so, unless you speak up, unless you are ready to act, then this stuff will continue. So, if you go to any of my podcasts or anything on my social media, I'm being very blunt to the point. I don't agree with a lot of things that are happening here, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit into it. But, that's the beauty of being older and retired. You no longer give a damn. It's like you see something wrong, you want to fix it. So that's kind of where I've been led in this whole post-Navy career.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I've been keeping track of mainly the Gee Dunk podcast that you do with Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that like a lot of the viewpoints, like I said, I wouldn't have expected a lot of the way that the conversations go, but they are very well grounded. They're very well researched and really do align with a lot of the other independent reporting and other podcasts that are going around, actually, calling out all this BS that's going on.
Yes.
Not necessarily in the matter of like, oh, this is just ridiculous. These are just criticisms for criticism's sake. It's like, no, these are valid problems, constitutionalities that are being affected, not only both in the what do you call the civilian sector, but us still in the military and anybody within the community of both veterans and like family members of the military.
Right. No, and one of the reasons that Dan and I, so Dan Barkoff, my co-host, he's my classmate from the Naval Academy, my Annapolis classmate, a former Navy SEAL and now trauma room, emergency room surgeon. So this man, the things that he does with his life is insane. But the reason that we're doing the podcast is a couple of reasons. Number one, those in uniform can't speak up. You're basically muzzled because you're wearing the uniform. We understand that. So we have to speak up for you guys, especially when things just don't make any logical sense. The other piece of this, too, is a lot of the talking heads that you see on TV have never put on a uniform. They've never deployed. They've never done any of these things, but yet they have these strong opinions. Well, how the hell do you have these strong opinions when you've never done it, right? And part of it, too, because when you wear the uniform, you're so used to not saying anything, a lot of veterans have yet to really speak up. Right. We have to break that habit of, okay, yeah, we're supposed to be quiet. No, because we have to be the trusted voices, the subject matter experts of this. I'll give you a perfect example. When you're talking about deploying active duty military on American soil, that is a fundamental problem. Okay. Fundamental problem. It goes against all norms. And additionally, you're trying to use the military for political tools, political reasons, not the defense of the nation. The thing that has bothered me the most about everything that's happened here very recently, it's not even about enforcing the law. It's about the messaging of cruelty. I don't know what's going on with this current administration, and I'm just calling them like I see it, but they have an infatuation of putting people of color, in this case brown, behind bars and flexing in front of it. Like that makes them tough, right? And it's almost like they don't know that brown people and black people in the United States have the highest propensity to serve in the military, in public service. We are the first to go and put ourselves on the line for everybody else. Without those two particular communities, the Latino community and the African-American community in America, you don't have a military. You don't have the force numbers to do the job. The United States military is the original DEI organization in the United States. Okay. And it wasn't because they were like, oh, this is the right thing to do. They had no choice. They had no choice. They had to take all comers. It wasn't until really, post-Civil War in American history where you started to see the hard segregation lines start to be put in. And then, of course, when the world seemed like it was going to end in World War II, those walls fell down again. So what you're seeing is a narrative that is trying to be put into the public where these people aren't necessary. These people are disposable. They're dispensable. When it's the exact opposite. The exact opposite. And in the audience that you have here, the thing that I want to make sure that people are aware, not only are people of this background of the Latino community, not just they essential, they are undeniably American in their ideals. You work hard, you don't complain, you serve the country, you put in, and it burns me up to no end to see what's happening here because Durant, you and I know. All of our buddies in the Navy, all this kind of stuff, all backgrounds. We don't give a damn about the stuff these people are talking about. We really don't. And I have to calm myself down because I'm like, the same people who are beating their chest saying, I need this done. Stephen Miller, he did not have the testicular fortitude to put on the nation's cloth. I'm just going to say it like that. That dude would last 2 seconds at Great Lakes. 2 seconds. Okay. But he's the one sitting there trying to say what America is and what an American isn't. It's ridiculous to me. as someone who I got commissioned May 25th, 2001. I spent 20 years fighting global war on terrorism. I've been all over the world, just like you have, for this country. And so I'll be damned if I sit here and watch on American streets a Latino teen walking down the street and someone's asking if he's an American citizen, like where are your papers? Like this is Germany in the 1930s under Nazi rule. It chaps my hide. It pisses me off to no degree. So as president of Veterans for Responsible Leadership, we've used the podcast. I'm on Midas Touch Network once a week, Friday nights. All these things, because I will be relentless on this. You, me, and everybody else that put this uniform on deserves it. The families that support us doing this deserve better. The story of the three Marine brothers out there in California whose father got beat down and deported. I was like, dude, they're better than me. They're better than me. And what pisses me off is people are like, well, yeah, that's tragic, but no, stop, full stop. I don't know. You tell me what I'm supposed to know here. These dudes go deploy all over the world, and they can't even know if their mom and dad are safe. Okay? Citizenship, this whole mindset of, well, we're here and you're not. No. Earn it. And let me tell you something. All these stereotypes that they're throwing out there, all the dudes at the Home Depot, guess what? They're earning their citizenship. They're building your damn houses. They're picking your goddamn food. All this stuff. And then after all of that, their sons and daughters are like, I want to go serve. Meanwhile, the people complaining in middle class, upper class America with straighter hair and bluer eyes are like, yeah, I'm an American, because they slap a sticker on the back of their car and think that they're a patriot. And this is ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous to me. And my thing is, there are people there are people with all backgrounds that understand that this is wrong, and they're starting to speak up, because it's really starting to be pervasive. We're starting to see it. But in the meantime, you have people that are living in perpetual fear for no other reason that they're trying to live an honest, decent life and support the country that they have adopted as their home. And when people say, well, they were illegal, let me tell you something. Ellis Island, back in about 100 years ago, all the immigrants that came from Europe were processed. They saw the Statue of Liberty, blah, 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 and they processed them, and it was no problem. Why? Because they were coming from Europe. We have done this before, where we took millions in, but they were all white. And now they want to pull the ladder up behind them and say, well, you people are wrong. Same reasons they came to America are the same reasons the people who are coming now came to America. The only difference is some of us have a more permanent suntan than the others, and so it's acceptable for them to do it in the 20th century. We purposely have shrunken the asylum process. We've got rid of the amount of judges legally to do this type of stuff. We've gotten rid of border agents that can process the claims in a timely fashion. Meanwhile, compared to the population back then, we had tons of people waiting, processed them in, gave them health checks, and even told them where to go settle. Welcome to America. So they miss me with that. Some of us know history. And that's why when they try to make these claims, I'm just sitting there laughing, because I'm like, they're bold-faced lies. They're bold-faced lies that are being twisted. Meanwhile, at the same time, if something pops off around the world and we have to expand the military, where do the military recruiters go? They go to the Latino high schools. They go to the black high schools. That's where they go first. First, not the upper class on the other side of town, white high schools. They come to our neighborhoods. So we're American citizens when it's convenient to go to war, but we're not American citizens when we are contributing in every other aspect of life. When I think about it like this is my final thing before I get off my soapbox. When you ask people around the world outside the United States, what is it to be American? 9 times out of 10, they're going to mention something from the Latino community that was brought here or the black community that was brought here. From the language, the vernacular, to the clothing, to the fashion, to the music, they're going to mention something blacks and brown people have done in this country. That's what America is. I hate to break it to them, but it is. So I'm unapologetic in telling people what's really going on, because people like you people like me, people like my brother, other family members that have served, deserve better than this. Deserve better than this. And so, yeah, I got nothing better to do, and I'm a petty individual, so I'm going to go ahead and fight anyway. So, soapbox over. I'm sorry about that rant. But.
No, you're good. And then actually, we will literally be touching on a lot of the stuff that you're talking about before we even get into that, like learning a little bit about yourself. But just a little bit of information for you. Like I said, you know me. We've served each other. We've served along on the same ship. We've done everything. And then, funnily enough, I've actually been at your last command at Mesron 4. I'm currently still helping out their people deployed to be able to go to Africa. I'm like I said, I'm here in Virginia, and anybody that's been in the military or that at least knows the region of Virginia being the largest hub of military anywhere in the world outside of like Germany and possibly Japan, but those are two very specific locations. This is legitimately the mecca of the military just in general. So you saying that there's a lot of reconnections and a lot of things that are like literally aligning to who shows up here. Everybody that I see here, and that would be as deliberate and as straightforward as this. There is not one car out here that I do not see with a Virginia plate that does not have a flag of another nation. And inside that car, there is somebody of different color, origin, and everything. And one more thing before we continue with the interview itself, it's like you may not know this about me, but I actually crossed the border illegally. I was undocumented for 13 years of my life. So, so for me, so for me to be able to see the exact same situation, having both dealt with that exact same fear from 2001, where I didn't understand and I still didn't know what 9/11 really was as an implicit event in our history, in our in our lifetime, not even history, in our lifetime, to what happened with the financial collapse in 2008. With the apprehension of Osama bin Laden, but also just everything going on across the world with the Fukushima reactor and everything going on in the Middle East up until 2021 when the military pulled out of Afghanistan. These are certain things that like I would have never known that I, as a military member, somebody who crossed the border at 6 years old, dealt with the legal system, the United States immigration legal system 3 times. In my entire lifetime. And now I see this whole situation being affecting not only me, but also fellow service members, their family members, and then other people that I don't know that are trying to do it the right way. But like you said, the ladder keeps getting pulled up is a little difficult.
Yeah, I know it's hard because using you as the perfect example, you have earned your citizenship in this country more so than anybody else. I called it like this. All these people that won the vagina lottery, they were born to the right family in the right zip code with the right color skin. And they will pass judgment on people like you who, by the way, the American dream is your story. And back when it was mostly white people that were living that way, grinding, and it was thumbs up. Now they're like, oh no, well, you did it the wrong way. Like, there was no immigration when a lot of these families came over. They just showed up. And then here's the difference. And Dr. King talked about this. When the Europeans came, not only did they show up, they were given land. They were just given free land.
What
in
happened?
The Midwest, go take it.
What happened recently with the Afrikaans people? That is a literal 100% one-to-one example. That's as simple as it can get.
They show up from South Africa, oppressed, growing up in the apartheid system, and they're like, not only are you here, here's land for you. I mean, and all of us who've been here for generations, uncompensated, especially, the former slave, we're just like, wait, what? Are you serious? We look, we just want to have decent schools built for us or this, that, and the other. No, you come with open arms. Or more importantly, the Afghan interpreters and people that worked with us in the military come over here. They have to earn all this stuff, and now they're getting sent back after risking their lives to help us. It's like, on what planet does this make sense? It only makes sense when you operate from a position of white supremacy. These people are better than these people. And when I mean these people, a very select few, and then everybody else get in line and we'll put you in a hierarchy of what we think you deserve. That's what's happening. We've been through this before in America, but they're bringing it back. And, there's nobody that can explain to me without doing the mental gymnastics of like Simone Biles to flip around and try to make this make sense from a logical standpoint. You can't. You can't. and I'm just like, you have to my friends, because I have friends who still are backing this stuff and they're like, it's not that bad. I just asked them one question. If this happened to you and your family, how would you take it? How would you take it? But then again, these are the same people who justified January 6th and burning the Capitol. See what I'm saying? So you have to understand that there is a point where they stop using rational logic. They stop applying the law equally, and they put themselves in this intellectual bubble where we're just better, or it doesn't apply to me. Like, for example, if me or you ran for president with 34 felonies, will we even be able to be on the ballot? Hell to the no. Hell to no. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, we live in an environment where that guy is in the White House with felonies on his record. Meanwhile, someone that looks like you walking down the street in front of a Target could get scooped up.
Yeah.
No questions asked. No identification.
Well, even as simple as this, the fact that the majority of the incarcerated people, let's be realistic. Let's talk about the prison industrial complex.
Yes.
The fact that you literally cannot be a felon and even vote to be represented to be able to try to change these laws and this whole jurisdiction that has 100% been worked against you since the very start just says that much about who's currently in office. Like I said,
it's amazing.
It's a crazy thing.
It's amazing. And ironically, the state of Florida, where President Trump now is a resident, has gone out of their way to disenfranchise felons who've already served their time. So my question for Ron DeSantis, governor and Navy JAG Corps member, is how in the hell are you going to let Trump vote then? Because you just said convicted felons can't do it. He's a convicted felon. But magically, they'll let him vote. See, this is the part. Either you are about law and order like they say they are, or you're not. But here's the thing. Have the balls to tell me that the rules don't apply to me. They apply to thee. They apply to y'all and not me. But they can't say that because they understand that hypocrisy train is too far gone. But that's what's happening. They're looking at laws right now to revoke the temporary protected status. And notice where they started. They started with Latino, Hondurans, Nicaraguans. They are not looking at anybody from Bosnia or any of these other groups in Europe that are here. They are targeting one area. Stephen Miller has this mentality of trying to create a white ethno state. He has said it. And he is the deputy chief of staff in the White House. And he just sits up coming up with ways to do it. He's starting with you guys. And then eventually he's going to try to move to the African-American community. Now, I think he understands with the African-American community, we'd rather die. You ain't doing that to us because of our DNA and what has happened. Because my mom went to segregated schools and lived through the civil rights movement. She's still alive. So we have recent memory. What's happening in your community, I think, is this. They're hoping that the fear outweighs your roots in America. But I think they're going to be sorely mistaken because it's not about the length of time Latinos have been here en masse. It's about the intensity of the experience. When you look at when Latinos started to really migrate here, it goes right before World War II into the Cold War. You showed up, you went to work, and you served. Those two things in a very compressed amount of time. And now you know you're American because you've damn done it. You've earned it. You literally have gone from picking in the fields to having to build your own communities, to having your own schools, to fighting to get the first ones into college. You've done all that in a compressed amount of time. And I think that the current administration thinks this is the 1950s. They think everybody's supposed to be John Wayne. And they think that the resolve, you have 60 days to self-deport yourself. Self-deport what? What? Makes no sense. And so what you're seeing, and this is the beauty of the social media world that we're in, the communications, the people helping to dodge the raids and stuff like that. And I will give our Caucasian brothers and sisters credit, especially in California, San Diego. When they tried doing those raids in San Diego, they were like, oh, hell no. You got it. Communities full of veterans that know the people that live there. They're like, oh, hell no, you're not doing it. You're not doing it here, not here. And so now you got the federal government suing California because Newsom and company are like, we ain't doing it. We ain't doing it. So it's going to be interesting to see, because here's how I think this is going to play out. I think they're going to try to do everything to intimidate and scare all the communities, particularly heavily in blue states. But at the same time, they will realize that the workforce that really pushes America forward is the same people they're raiding. And agriculture is already feeling it. The cities are about to really start feeling it. Construction, home construction's definitely feeling it, right? And something's going to have to give. Either this group of people that are pushing these rules love money too much and they will back off, or the economy will collapse and they will be blamed for it. They got to make a choice. They got to make a choice. And so you're going to start to see here, especially as we get into next year where the midterm elections start to kick off. Just watch. Just watch. Something's going to have to give. But but the people have got to endure. They've got to stay fat. They got to be resilient. They got to stay fast, because, damn it, they want you to be scared.
Oh, yeah. Very, very
scared. But think about it like this. You came over the border at 6. Let me tell you something. If you are a mom that has drugged your child, your children, your babies over a border having to smoke, you've done harder shit.
I don't even
Plant
have to
your
go.
feet. you know? I mean, I'm just being real.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just being real. And like I said, Stephen Miller, boy, he's diabolical.
Oh, yeah.
It's about cruelty to him. He really has this. I want to say psychologically, it's almost like an inferiority complex. When I hear him speak and I watch him speak, obviously he reminds me of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propagandist from the 30s. But there's another piece of this. I don't know if someone took his girl in high school or what, and they were Latino or what, because he's from California. But dude, he's something else.
Man, I just want to make the joke. He was probably trying to get himself into that life like Blood in, Blood out, milkweed, freaking Miklo, and they just said no, man. Like we don't.
We ain't got room for you.
We can only take one. We met our quota, and that's it.
I mean, it is what it is. But here's the thing, though. The one thing about all of this, America has always been this tapestry of different people in different backgrounds. Always has. It's never been some all white community like they want to make it, right? Like they want to make it seem like. When you look at the most combat effective units in military history, they're overwhelmingly the minority groups.
Yes.
So think about it. In aviation, the Tuskegee Airmen set the bar for what combat effective military aviation is. As far as ground troops, you have the 442nd Combat Regiment that were all Japanese Americans that were interned. Them jokers got freaking, I want to say 900 Purple Hearts and like 21 Medal of Honors in freaking only a year and a half of fighting. We're talking badasses.
Oh yeah. The real life Rambo, being a Green Beret, came back from the dead 3 times. A man from Texas, from immigrant parents from the fields. The 201st Air Wing, down from Mexico, that was literally the exact. So just like you, I know your history, and just as I know my history, and we've seen it both from our perspective and even within our time frame. Most of the people that we see that are not mentioned and aren't even mostly recognized are the ones that are actually out there doing the fighting, that are skin tones a little bit darker than what is expected, or what's considered to be the quintessential American hero, military hero. But it's a whole
ruins
bunch of
their
stuff.
Narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. They come into office this term, and the first thing they do is try to erase military history. They Google search DEI to try to erase it, and the outrage was so great, even from white people. They were like, "We kind of messed this up." And understand the psychological reasons for this. When you take away the heroes of people that are supposed to be less than, inferior, oppressed, then you can keep them that way. But when those people know that there have been people that not only did badass things, they did it in spite of extra hurdles, dude, you walk in the next day to work like you're a Superman. So that one of the reasons they changed the base names back to the original names was because they have a Cavalos and all these names, an Hispanic name base. We can't do that. Why? Why not? You know what I'm saying? It's like, because, but let's try to turn them back to the names of Confederate losers without saying they're Confederate losers by finding another name with the last name. I mean, it's so cowardly.
Yeah.
It's cowardly. And most importantly, you know, if you are a person of color, like if you're a black guy that had to go to Fort Benning to get training, it's like, why am I? Because growing up in Georgia, I knew what Fort Benning, I knew who it was named after. I knew what AP, you know, Hood and all these. I'm like, why do these clowns have names? They just weren't Confederates. They were terrible generals, right? And now they try to say it's tradition, it's tradition, it's tradition, it's tradition. But it's interesting. Their tradition, win or lose, is amplified. The traditions of people who are badasses, you know, like a Benjamin O. Davis Jr., who was the leader of the Tuskegee Airmen. We don't want to name anything after him. Never mind the fact that they were the first ones to shoot down a jet in propeller planes. Never mind any of that. We don't want to amplify that because you may encourage someone like my brother to join the Air Force and become a combat pilot himself, right? So the narrative of what it means to be a hero, it's another level when you have these burdens and these hurdles you have to go through. I honestly think at the end of the day, this is going to galvanize people that never really probably noticed before, never really cared before. It's going to effectively remind people of the shared sacrifices across all this spectrum of people that created to be America. It's rough now. It's rough now, right? But every now and then, sometimes you just got to, remind yourselves, dude, my grandparents did this. My great-grandparents did this. Heck, in some cases, my mom dragged me across a border at 6. At 6. Because she was like, this is not going to stand. And so when you sit there and you feel bad or you feel sorry for yourself, you remember your mother, your grandmother, or another family member's like, no, we have to go do better. Do you understand? I had to explain this to one of my friends here in Georgia who very well off, this and the other. I go, what kind of fear do you think a mother who has a baby, father may have been killed by whoever back there. They're like, I'm going to take this child and I'm going to walk over 1,000 miles and try to cross a border because it's either that or we will suffer and die. Can you imagine the fear that they must have had to fight to get there? And then you want to question their resolve. You want to question if they're worth being here. When, you were born in a state-of-the-art hospital in the finest goddamn society parts of America and this, that, and the other, and went to debutante balls and all this other crap. But you're going to question whether she should be here. I don't understand it, Ranch.
It's baffling. It's completely baffling because of just the way the narrative is. But it's we could literally go on for hours and hours about this. We literally could. Yeah. But you're very correct. You're very correct. There's this is going to sound very radical. So growing up, I listened to a lot of music, and one of the most interesting things that I ever heard from music in itself was actually an interview about Mumia Abu Jamal, one of many people in the 80s, many black men in the 80s in Philadelphia, where he was falsely incriminated for the murder of a police officer. And it's funny because he actually was, so within the hip hop community, like you said, it spread all over the world.
Yep.
It spread all over the world to the fact that like you have it everywhere in the world. But here I am, some Mexican kid in rural Nevada listening to New York boom bap rap. And this man that I've never heard of shares his entire perspective on what it's been like being incarcerated for however many years he was when he recorded this in 2004. And he literally, and it's literally named Homeland and Hip Hop. And in there, he literally goes and says that the United States, the black man lives in a world of two dualities, essentially.
Yep.
And America lives in a world in two different worlds, one of the well-to-do and one of the impoverished and struggling. So right. It's a very clear narrative, like how you're explaining to it. It's like, my experience does not compare to the same experience as your friend. Your experience doesn't compare to the same as your friend. But at a certain point, there's a level of struggle and just complete undermined ability that people that they just don't understand. And it's actually where we're gonna start the rest of this interview. So going with that and sticking with it, tell me about yourself. Tell me about Bobby R. Jones. He grew up in Georgia, and how was that for you? I'm guessing it was you were born in the late 80s, correct?
Late 70s. So
late 70s.
78. So my story is kind of, well, it's I guess it's unique because I was born, my dad had just got through playing in the NFL. He played for the Atlanta Falcons, thus the jersey.
I remember that.
But here's the thing. He grew up in deep Southern segregated poverty. I mean, terrible poverty. I mean, house on cinder blocks. You know what that looks like, poverty, right? And he grew up 13 miles from the University of Florida. And he became this great athlete in high school, but couldn't go to Florida because they had no black players. And they weren't going to, offer him a scholarship. He thought about maybe trying to be the first one, etc. But my grandmother was like, oh, hell no. So he goes to Virginia Union, a historically black college in Richmond. My mom was a teenage mom from Greenville, South Carolina, and they met when they both got to Atlanta. Now, here's the one thing that my parents have always agreed on. My dad has passed on in 2023. My mom's still here, but they agreed that their children will have the best educational opportunity that they can find because, like my grandmother used to say, education is the one thing you can get that once you get it, no one can take it from you. They can't steal it back, right? So I was on the south side of Atlanta, and in sixth grade, we were approached by one of the elite private schools in Atlanta. I didn't want to go because when I showed up there for the interview, the only black people I saw were custodians, people cleaning. And I was like, I don't want to go here. Parents made me go anyway. So I go there, and understand, this is the early 90s, the mindset of, okay, you're from the other side of town, the black side of town, your schools aren't good, this, that, and the other. And you hear it. So you show up to this elite private school and you assume that all these white kids that you're in class with are smarter than you. With the first day I sat down in class, I had two guys come up to me and ask me, who are you and what are you doing here? Now, public school rules say I choke these jokers out right here, right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, who the hell are you? But I didn't. 3 days into class, I'm starting to realize these kids aren't smarter than me. About a week in the classes, I'm like, oh my God, I'm smarter than they are. Why are they the ones that are rich? Why do they have all this? They have the Harvard t-shirts because they expected to go there. All this nonsense. And I started to understand it's not even about the intelligence of someone. It is about the opportunity to get an education, because education, no matter what people will tell you, it's about access. It's about access to getting greater things, getting into certain walled off clubs. This is part of my story, but think about it like this. Affirmative action, the thing that this administration absolutely hates, took off in the 70s. The number one benefactors of that were white women, followed by blacks and Latinos, this, that, and the other. When affirmative action allowed people of color and women to go to college in mass numbers, this is when you saw college tuition start to climb up exponentially, because they realized they gave away too much access. So we need to come up with a new floor to stop people from just going to these universities. So they raised the price. You compare the rate of inflation versus the cost of education back then and now, it's completely out of whack, because if you are the white male that got to go to college on the GI Bill post-World War II at a very economical rate, you then got into a higher bracket of making money, and so you could afford to pay for your kids to go to college. However, if you, Durant, or me tried to do the same thing back in the 50s, we were denied using our GI Bill because, well, you're not going to the white school. Can't do it, okay? So you go to historically black college or a high Hispanic enrollment college, and you try to make do. But the gap starts there. So when I'm at this private school, I'm there, I'm on, financial aid, scholarship, this, that, and the other. And my mom and dad would tell me, look, we're spending everything we got to get you to get to a college level. We can't pay for college. You got to do something. I started playing football, became very good, had about 51 Division I scholarship offers, but I wanted to do more than just play sports. So I applied to the Naval Academy to get an appointment. And everybody, there was about a significant number of people in my class in high school that laughed. They're like, man, you can't go to school there. That's hard. Blah, blah, blah. So I'm petty. So I said, no, I'm gonna damn do it. This is bullshit. I'm doing it. And I went, struggled there, got my ass handed to me every day for 4 years, graduated dead last in the class. But the struggle was part of what I needed to go through to understand how to deal and to be a proper leader, to not have the arrogance, well, you're the leader, you must know everything, and blah, 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 blah. No, that ain't how it works. And you saw me as an XO. I wasn't going around telling people, hey, I'm the XO, but like, look, show me what you do and how we can make it better. It's a different approach. So, I served all the 22 years all around the world, different missions, retire, come home. And then, the election season was kicking off in 2023, 2024. I actually ran for Fayette County commissioner, one of the commissioners, because they asked me to, knowing I was going to lose because no one had ever ran against this guy. But I outperformed everybody in my county, which is great. But I learned a lot. I learned by talking to people, different backgrounds, different parts of the county. We have a lot more in common than we have difference. But people make money out of exploiting the differences. If you look at the election cycle, when you look at the news, right, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, those big three, they make a ton of money when elections are going. And that started in 2015 with Donald Trump. So they have become complicit because they're like all about the money. They're owned by corporations now, not individual editors. So it's profitable for them to talk about Trump and to perpetuate lies and this, that, and the other, or whatever. It's not just Trump, whoever's lying, to exploit that gap to make money. They don't give a damn about what happens to the country. And so it starts to sink into people. They're like, oh, well, this must be true because I heard it on Fox or I heard it on MSNBC. Which is why the natural antibody and reaction to this is doing what you're doing. The social media, the independent media enabled by by social media is why we're doing this. Now, me personally, Dan and I decided to start doing this podcast because we looked around and we saw these talking heads talking about all this stuff, and we're like, not one of y'all are deployed anywhere. You don't know what rules of engagement means. You don't know what use of force is. You don't understand political environments. You don't understand the socioeconomics of these different countries, the cultural balances you have to deal with. You don't know. But you're running off at the mouth from a very limited perspective. And the thing that's different now than even 40 years ago when you watch news and media, the people that are sitting in the anchor chairs now have been media people their entire lives. As opposed to Walter Cronkite, way back in the day, Dan Rather, these jokers embedded with military during World War II, Vietnam. They watched people die. So they told the truth to the American people, and the American people trusted them because they know that they have seen some things. They weren't about their individual branding, which is what is happening now. The individual branding mindset of media has become the poison to American democracy because you cannot trust what someone's saying because they have a certain bend. They have a certain bent. And depending on what makes them the most money is the way they'll go. You'll see a Tucker Carlson be ultra conservative, and then he doesn't like these bills that are going to cost him money. He swaps over. Joe Rogan has done that famously here in the last year. He endorses Trump. Now he's kind of upset about the immigration issue. You know why? Because he probably got someone working on his house right now. Right? So my background of being a naval officer, and I say this with all due respect to my other brothers and sisters in the other branches of service, when you join the Navy, you're going to see the damn world. You can serve an enlistment in the Army and never leave your barracks. You never leave your base. You may go train and come back, but you and I both know when you join the Navy, they're going to put your butt on a ship and your ass is going over the horizon. You're going to go see other cultures. And so all the way back to 1775, the United States Navy, you are a mini ambassador for the United States. You can't go and ask for permission for everything because you may not be able to get in touch with anybody when you're in the middle of nowhere. So you have to be an independent thinker. And that Navy mindset, that maverick mindset that we have, allows someone like me or you to come home and look at things with a much more objective point of view, right? A much more informed point of view. And so I'm not smart. I'm not a genius. I'm not any of this. I just have a hell of a lot of experience going around the world, being in other countries and saying, that ain't right. We better not be doing that. And then when you come home, you see some of the same things that are happening in other countries. Like, wait a minute, what the hell are we doing? We don't have people having to carry passports around like their papers to be in America. Since when do we do that? You know, these are the type of things that are happening right here, right now. We do not deploy United States Marines to Los Angeles, dude.
Yeah.
We don't. We don't. But now they're trying to make it seem like it's normal, that's the status quo. Like this Gestapo mindset, that's normal. Bullshit. It's not normal.
I'll go ahead and actually give you a counterpoint to that. So during the first administration, when I was actually stationed in California, do you remember them actually sending out the first troops to the border themselves?
Yep, I remember that.
So that's the first sign that I saw. I was like, why are we here? Why is the United States of America, its military within the southern border of the United States, stopping all these people when everything that's going on already since 2014, when we were cruising around in the Mediterranean, through the Atlantic, and through all the Straits of Hormuz? It's like, how is it possible that now that it's 2017, 2018, it's starting to get so bad supposedly, and we have to deploy our own National Guard to the southern border? It's like, don't get me wrong. It's like, I'm not saying that there's that Mexico in itself is a what do you call it, is a great country and everything. It's like, no. You're going to find problems and situations wherever you go in the world. The fact that the current only focus is that just the drug cartels, the people that are being that are causing the problems in the southern border and are causing people to flee, we tend to forget. Wasn't that the whole Bosnia-Herzegovina situation in the 90s with Ukraine? I was
going to say the same thing.
So
I was going to say that.
Exactly. So and then even as recently as 2023, while I was deployed, the whole situation with Sudan. I won't get into details where we were, but it's the exact same situations. Like, what were we doing in those nations to be able to be readily available to be able to, one, attack if need be, to be able to get our people, the American citizens, primarily the American citizens, out of there, but also to be able to support any of the regimes. Because let's be realistic, let's call them what they are, regimes in the area within the interest of the United States. So it's interesting. It's interesting that you do put it that way with the way that it is. But let me ask you one very specific question with that. So focusing on your naval career, what were some of the differences that you noted within your Naval Academy, what do you call, fellow officers, both surface warfare and aviation? What were some of the differences that you noticed in your way of thinking, resolution, and problem solving that just didn't make sense to you, understanding the way that they may have grown up? Because we know it. Every single one of the military academies, to a certain extent, has a very very set quota for the children of Congress, senators, the president, if they want their kids, and anybody specific to Gold Star members. Unfortunately, for Gold Star family members. That's what I'm saying. So, but there's also a true few in between their individuals, just like yourself, that fought for your place, earned your place, and have made it. Regardless if you were the last, you still are a Naval Academy grad. It's
interesting. The political part of the service academies is not nearly as prevalent as it was back, World War II, post World War II, Cold War, because the standard is so high. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but a lot of these families now, the well-off, affluent families, not many, they don't want their kids doing that. See, there's been a shift in American service philosophy. It used to be, families like the Kennedys, the Roosevelts, very well off families, they still said, hey, you need to do your duty and go serve for a period of time in the military. It was a reoccurring theme. Vanderbilts, I mean, they all sent people to serve. Now the affluent class is very adverse to that. They don't want their kids in the military, da da da. And it's interesting because it creates an even wider rift between that group of people and the rest of everybody else. Because when you look at the majority of people who enlist and even go into officer programs, they're from the lower class, the lower economic class of America still, right? And joining the military helps, bring you up a higher class, job skills, etc., blah, blah, blah. But the affluent crowd, and this is coming from someone who went to high school with them, junior high and high school with them, no, sir. Don't get me wrong. There's usually one in like every class that I get to deal with at my old school, my old high school, that they'll do it, and they're great. And they're great. And their families get it. They're like the last remnants of that, though. They're like, the military thing, I don't know. So that's part one. The other thing I will say is, the one thing I will give the Service Academy credit for, and ROTC, is they try to have these officer candidates think critically, because they know one thing: when you deploy, you can't create your own reality. You have to deal with the one that's in front of you. Period. So politicians have the luxury of making shit up to make their case seem relevant. Me and you on Anzio could not do that. We're looking out there, the Iranians, like, ain't no way you're going to shape this into something different than what it actually is. When the 10 sailors were kidnapped and stuff like that, we had to deal with hardcore facts, what we had on the ground, the intel that we had, all of this stuff. We couldn't spin it and hope something different happens. One of our senior chiefs on board, Anzio, he had this saying. He goes, man, when these digital bullets on the screen become analog, everybody's going to find out what facts are. Meaning when it hits the fan and things really happening, we ain't going to try to just make stuff up. You have to deal with the reality, right? And so, and that deployment, we got back in July of 2016, and we had been gone for 9 months. And the political campaign had kicked off, Trump versus Clinton. It was like we came back to a completely different world. I remember that. I sat home for like 24 hours just watching the news, like, what is all of this? It was insane. Facts didn't matter. People just making stuff up. And I was like, there's no way this is a serious presidential election. Because we left, it was different. We come back and we're in the middle of all these scandals, all these lies, this, that, and the other. And it's like we haven't broken from that fever. Now, to go back to your original question, I think one of the reasons why veterans need to run for more public office is because we recognize that we have to deal with reality. Your decision matrix in the military cannot suffer from political aspirations. It'd be nice if this went, well, I'm sorry, they're shooting. It's like, I know what you said that they were going to do, but I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. What's happening with Iran, Israel, and the United States, where they're like, there's a ceasefire while there are missiles going up in the air. And then Trump is mad because it embarrassed him because Israel and Iran did not honor the ceasefire. Well, this is the reality of the situation, right? You can be pissed, you can curse on the White House lawn, but we have to deal with the reality. By we, the military, the people who had the Patriot batteries and the THAAD batteries, the LUD, they had to deal with it, no matter what he said. So, I think the military, when the push comes to shove, even if you have people that are like, oh, I love Trump, or oh, I hate Trump, blah, 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 we realize that, hey, when we have to do our job, we have to do our job with the facts. And this is the difference between, I think, the American military and others. We've never had a military coup. We've never had all this kind of stuff because George Washington from day one was like, these things are separate. He turned in his sword after the American Revolution and he went back to Mount Vernon. They had to recall him to make him president, okay? He wanted no parts. No parts. But what has happened, we have not had an active duty veteran president since George H.W. Bush. And if you look at American foreign policy, especially American foreign policy, since then, it's been shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's been terrible. When Bush had to do Desert Storm, because he was president during Desert Storm, do you notice we went in, did the mission? Colin Powell said, we ain't going into Iraq, and everybody understood it, and we backed up. It was the most clean military operation campaign in American military history, because George H.W. Bush was shot down over the Pacific as the youngest pilot in the United States Navy. Okay? He had wartime experience. We have had a bunch of politicians, whether you love them or not, from Clinton, Obama, Bush, it doesn't matter, Trump, they all talk tough about using the military. I'm a commander-in-chief, almost like a toddler playing dress up, especially the guy that's in there now, right? I think it should be a prerequisite for you to be commander-in-chief, to be president of the United States, you have active duty military service. I think it should be a prerequisite, right? Oh, yeah. But at the same time, someone like me, or even someone like you, has a better understanding of what it means to put things on the line and to send America's most precious resources to do something. I worry that people that have our mindset and experience will not want to step up and be that leader, because the propaganda, the risk, the toll that it takes is a lot. It's a lot. And I'm not, I don't think it takes anything Herculean to be president of the United States, to be honest with you. It just takes a lot of ego. But can someone walk on the base like in Norfolk, NOB Norfolk, and command the respect of 90,000 people on that base, right, that will deploy into harm's way and may not come back? If you can't trust them, they have no integrity, and most importantly, they don't want to understand what you have to do to serve, especially if you have a certain percentage of them that were not Americans, that are earning their citizenship and their families are left behind. Are you going to take care of them, or are you going to try to lock them up like they're doing? That's the issues that we're running into.
Oh, yeah. Very true. Very true. And then here's the situation with that as well. Like you mentioned earlier, the three brothers, so they weren't Marines, but they were in the National Guard. And it's like, at this point, if anything were to actually happen, regardless of what branch they're serving, if anything were to actually just immediately happen with Iran, and say for whatever reason, we were actually supposed to get sent out immediately. They're like, hey, immediate mobilization, quick reaction forces. We are deploying to the borders of Iran, and we are going to go. There are more people now in the situation to be able to go ahead and raise their hand up and say and sign, I am a conscientious objector. I do not want to participate in the actions of such set and forth. You'll see that happen. You will see that happening.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And they will have no plan to deal with that.
Exactly.
They won't. They'll be like, oh, well, you're going anyway. Okay, well, all right. So that person is taking up a spot, not going to do the job. You know what I'm saying? Not going to do the maintenance on the ship. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And now everybody else is stressed out. It's almost like there's no strategic, big vision thought process happening right now.
Yes.
And that should terrify everybody, especially when, and you can't say it, but I'll say it, I think the Secretary of Defense is the biggest abomination we've ever had in that position. Since they changed the name from Secretary of War to Secretary of Defense post-World War II, he is by far the worst we've ever had. He has no business in the office, none whatsoever. And it's so funny. Anytime he gets criticized for anything militarily, he tries to turn to the culture wars. He tries to come to DEI and wokeness and da-da-da. Like, no, fool. You have a makeup room in the goddamn Pentagon. You need to talk about what's actually happening. I don't think that man understands the gravity of the job that he has. I also don't think he's sober 100% of the time, too. But the fact that he is the number one person that is supposed to give advice to the president on military matters, and when we actually did the Iranian strike, was not in the room to give advice on military matters, should tell you everything you need to know about him.
Yes.
You and I are more qualified to be SecDef than he is.
And unfortunately, I do want to say that in that regard, I am not in any way, and I will go ahead and clear this out. And like they say, I will deny it if you try to put me to it. Yep. but openly saying it as it is, no affiliation. These are all my own personal thoughts and do not reflect anything to do with the Department of Defense. But we could literally have put in an actual chief, a first sergeant, a staff sergeant in that position in any situation, and they would have looked at it like you said, like you and Dan said on one of the episodes of the Gidunk. There are specific levels to it when you guys were talking about it. It's like you have your strategic, your tactical, your operational and tactical. And the biggest thing that I keep seeing is that everybody wants to be a door kicker. Everybody wants to be a fucking badass.
Yes.
You can't be a badass.
No, that is not the job description.
No, your entire intent of being in a suit and tie is to quite literally be a suit and tie. You are there to advise, to assist, and to coordinate and organize. Your job of supposedly what you think you were doing in Fallujah, which I think is where he served at, what you were doing in Afghanistan, where you earned your Bronze Star, and I commend him. I 100% commend him for that. But it still doesn't excuse the fact of his behavior, and it doesn't excuse the situation of what's currently going on as a top military advisor, as the highest top military advisor to the administration and in his behavior. And the worst part about it, is when the whole entire leak of the first strikes in Yemen happened. That the moment I said that, hey, let's go back a couple years real quick. What did you guys do to that one kid that took a screenshot from the Air Force and said, hey, here's this stuff. He's where is he, in Leavenworth right now? He's somewhere in the middle of nowhere in a black hole site with the CIA literally overhead and saying, like, you are a traitor to this country. This is treason. You will die in this hole. You know what? And it sounds very, very, very extreme, but to that sort of level, at that point, I would rather stand with that man and die in the hole with him than I would to be able to try to follow anything that's currently happening. Because
I agree.
It's difficult. It's difficult to observe and see it.
I agree. So the thing that kills me about him, his sec bro mentality, because that's kind of how he acts, sec bro. He keeps using the words, the standard and lethality and this, that, and the other. I'm like, but dude, you're the exact opposite in this role. Right? You have no standard. You had to fire the national security advisor because he's the fall guy for you. You guys were like high-fiving each other like some teenagers. Dude, you had feet dry aircraft attacking, and you're going to sit there and just, there you go. Da, 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 da. I'm just like, how is he even still there? And the thing about it is, and this goes to the man at the top, President Trump, in my humble opinion, has always undervalued what the military does. Going back to his first term, calling us suckers and losers, all this kind of stuff. He sees us as an accessory to his manhood, to his power, to his authority. He in no way, shape, form believes he is supposed to serve the military as a servant leader. Doesn't even understand that. Can't even conceptualize that idea. And his entire administration is structured to where the people that he has in cabinet positions and below are to serve him, not the American people, him, to put him on a pedestal. And what you're seeing now is this trickle-down effect of it. Every crisis that the administration has dealt with in these first 6 months has been a collective shit show. From an operational standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, and from a C2 command and control standpoint. It's been terrible because they came in and gutted everything without knowing what they were gutting. You have FEMA right now in Texas finally, and apparently FEMA works for Texas. Since when? News to me. And we're still trying to find bodies because of the inaction. The NOAA can't even predict damn things when it comes to weather because you gutted them. And the communication pieces for them. You took them away, okay? And so now we have hundreds of people missing. Little girls at that camp gone because of these actions. I can't think of one major thing that has happened since the administration has come into power January 20th where they handled the crisis correctly or at least competently. And I don't understand what the strategic goal is of what they're doing. Like, okay, you bombed Iran. What now? What now? Oh, I can tell you what now. The freaking special assistant to the supreme leader over there is like, we need to assassinate Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. How can you have a diplomatic solution to anything if this is the rhetoric that's flying? And now even Israel is saying, yeah, we didn't totally destroy the nuclear capability of Iran. Well, no shit. We all knew that, but you did it anyway. So you have painted yourself into a diplomatic corner, and the ultimate deal maker is not going to be able to figure a way out of it. We now are hoping we can get back to what Obama negotiated in 2015. Doubt it happens. Okay, that's international. Meanwhile, Ukraine is still fighting for its life. And now we finally turn back on the weapons flow for them, because I don't know if we want Ukraine to win or we want Russia to win. I can't tell you what the administration wants. I know what the American people want. I know what the American military thinks. We should be supporting Ukraine unconditionally, but we don't, right? And by the way, you started a trade war with the entire world, to which the economic floor and the economic ceiling of the United States of America is going to change dramatically in the next 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
And he started it. And what is he telling you to focus on? The borders.
Mm-hmm.
It's a distraction. Shiny object over here, the people who are trying to come in here and have a better life, and most importantly, put food on your table, quite literally, focus on them. Don't focus on the fact that the economy is going to go down to twos because I killed every trade deal that we had with every nation that we had. Don't focus over here with the fact that I needed to bomb Iran because Elon Musk made fun of me and talked about the Epstein files. Don't look over here because Russia obviously has some type of compromise on me and I don't want to directly conflict with them, even though Ukraine is over there fighting the fight the entire world wants them to win. This is what we're dealing with. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican in the past. I can't see Ronald Reagan, H.W. Bush, freaking Clinton, Bush, or Obama doing this. I can't.
No.
I can't.
Not in that way, especially like whatever crises that they dealt with were very specific to their time, but not self-imposed. Inflicted in a certain way because of the way that they handled political, a little bit of the political rhetoric and a little bit of just the diplomatic negotiations, which that's going to be every single president. But everything that the current administration has been doing is literally been shooting themselves in the foot one way or another and saying, hey, he did it. It wasn't me. I didn't shoot myself in the foot. They did it. And
you hit on something that I have asked here recently. Can any American name one time in the presidency? And then I stopped and I said, no, forget that. In the lifetime of Donald John Trump, where he assumed responsibility for anything?
Never.
Not once.
Mm-hmm.
Not once. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because presidents have messed up. When Kennedy, Bay of Pigs, he took full responsibility. Carter failed Iranian hostage rescue, took full responsibility. Eisenhower had in his pocket a responsible speech he wrote in case D-Day failed. Leadership, assuming the responsibility. I don't even think President Trump would even know how to craft that speech.
Even the speech that would be crafted by his administration would not take any responsibility, not in any single way. It's baffling. It's baffling. It's insulting to the intelligence of the actual American people, the ones that are actually listening to it. I think that's the worst part about it, is that we understand it. We know it. The public that is willing to actually listen and not get themselves stuck within this echo chamber of just continuous nuisance. Not even problems at this point. Just it's become so abundantly just nuisances that every single crisis that is actually happening is just becoming like, hey, it's the apocalyptic calendar. What's gonna happen again within the next 30 days? What's on the schedule this week? What's predicted for the next? And then what are we gonna see in the full spread within the next 8 hours?
I think you're hitting on something that's very important. We have now been conditioned to just deal with crisis after crisis after crisis. And it's our new normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like you wake up in the morning, you turn on the news and you're thinking to yourself, what now?
Yeah.
You know, and that is by design as well.
Mm-hmm.
The saturation doctrine of chaos, where you can get away with everything and everybody can't track everything. So you got to fight through to find what really, really matters. I'll be honest with you, something like the Gulf of America, that's stupid. Go ahead and have it. We don't care. But let's talk about your immigration policy and you talking about you need to deport 10,000 people a day or whatever ridiculous number you've come up with. How's that supposed to work? How's that supposed to work? And then how's the economy going to deal with it?
Yeah.
That's the other piece that no one's talking about.
Exactly.
You lose 13 million people. What happens then?
Exactly.
The State Department, it just popped up in my queue. Mm-hmm. They're laying off people left and right as of today.
Yeah.
The State Department.
And it's funny because I'm literally over here thinking about the numbers in itself. It's like, wow, everybody's really, really focused on, hey, this whole immediate term situation that's going on. Like everybody's getting laid off.
Yep.
What's going to happen when the end of the year taxes have to be put out? What kind of a legitimate shit show is that going to be when it shows up at the very end of the day? It's January 2026, and you're sitting there trying to justify, well, you know what? Nobody's getting a return.
Yep.
What if that happens? Or everybody's getting audited? It's a lot of situations that we didn't deal with the first administration, which is something that I want to ask you about itself. So and before I do that,
yeah,
I do want to. This has actually been a long time actually coming in itself, but I do want to apologize for what I said at my reenlistment. But I will reiterate. I will reiterate what I said afterwards when I shook your hand when I signed up against her. It's like, the Navy has given me a lot of things. I don't hate it, but this organization in itself, it is what it is. And like I said, I won't say the rest of the part, but I want to apologize for that. But it's because of that. Because literally in those same weeks, I was standing at the ECP at the pier, and one of the other guys that I was on the ECP with was a Trump supporter. And when that final midnight call came in that Hillary Clinton had lost, he said, "Finally, it's America." Yeah. It's here. Right. We're going to get rid of everybody. And it's like, for me to decide to sign up for another 4 years under this administration is just baffling. Is baffling to do it. And thinking back, like I said, I'm 12 years in. That was at the end of my 3 years. And I said, like I said a lot of things in front of you, fellow service members, the CO, the commanding officer of the ship. And I meant every single word of it, with no disrespect to you, because
I didn't take it personal.
Oh no, but like I said, and in this situation, this is where it's going to lead into, I guess, still within your career in the military. After that, you left the ANZIO. You became the executive officer over at the Leyte Golf, or the
So I did. At Mizron 4 now, but CRS 4, and then fleeted up to be the CEO.
Gotcha.
But before that, I also was the admiral's aide to Military Sealift Command, the actual commander there. So I got to learn about logistics, which
that's a whole different show.
It's a whole different ball game, and so it's interesting, doing the XO thing. And then becoming the commanding officer. And this is why I go so hard after Trump and Hegseth so much. If you don't feel the weight of the responsibility of people's lives, right, then you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. My greatest fear was not me, being successful by some metric the Navy said as a commanding officer. My greatest fear was losing somebody. Like losing someone getting hurt, man, because I did not do everything I could to make sure they were safe. That was the great fear. I do not have the confidence in the current upper chain of command, the commander-in-chief, the secretary of defense, where they think like that. I don't think they think that at all. There's no question. I don't believe, we've had service members die since Donald Trump has come into office the second time. He didn't write a letter. He didn't acknowledge them publicly. He didn't go wait on the bodies coming from Latvia. He didn't give a damn. Mm-hmm. Didn't give a damn. He was playing golf at Bedminster when they came home. Okay. I don't care what anybody tells you. Show me how you feel and I will believe you. He showed me. Hegseth didn't go. No one cared. And my thing is, the hypocrisy where they're like, well, Biden looked at his watch when he was there. At least he was there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a serious problem with leaders who hide behind our uniform. If you criticize the leadership, they're like, you're criticizing the pilots that flew this mission in Iran. No, we're not. And like I said in Gita, I'm like, hey, the military does hard things. That's what we trained for. They did their jobs. Congratulations, give them their little medal and let them go back to do their business. But we can question, why did they go in the first place? We can question whether or not it was effective. We can question, what is the strategy here? Because right now you've got now up to 70,000 service members in the AOR of the Middle East, all under ballistic missile threat, range-wise, with an inventory in Iran that's in the thousands. I know because I worked at Missile Defense Agency, so don't tell me. I went and had to war game this stuff. So when I'm telling you this is a problem, it's a problem. It's a problem. And they have no answer. The national security strategy is supposed to be getting worked on. It's supposed to be released here at the end of the summer. The fact that we don't have one and we're taking all of this action around the world should scare people. We're taking action internationally and we're defying norms domestically. You literally think about it like this. You're literally sending people in the military abroad into parts unknown, and the people that you're having to pull from to create that military, you're hunting down like dogs and talking about deporting them. Make it make sense to me.
Oh, yeah.
Make it make sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
And then with that national defense strategy too, is like, now that you're mentioning it, it's like, it really makes no complete sense. It's like, now you're like, I get it, whatever. The Navy and the military, the Navy in general, the biggest thing that I still continue to understand and know, both from taking naval history courses and as well as just learning everything, is like deterrence, forward presence, and an immediate response.
Yep.
What is America going to do? What is the United States, its people, going to do when its deterrence and forward response and its immediate response is literally all the way halfway across the world, and its second immediate response is literally here rounding up everybody that it wants to consider criminals. The nations that want to do harm, the nations that are going to want to try to exploit that, will take that into effect and attack the current situation at what it is. They're essentially saying in the back of their boardroom, I'm not back of the in the back of their war room, saying like, let the states destroy themselves with this immigration process. We'll focus on the military.
Yes.
Now, while they're killing themselves at home, we'll kill them abroad. And like I said, I'm not we all have very, very specific opinions about like the U.S. policy abroad and everything. But this is one of those situations where it's like, you can't be very self-focused or self-centered on what's currently going on with all of that. It's going to come down to a head to like, what's going to be the actual response, like you said, with the rest of the administration, with the way that what's currently going on. Is this
what we have now is, and now the recent action of what's come up where they're like, hey, we want military to support, counter drug ops and stuff like that within the United States. That just came out here in the last 2 days. Okay. They're creeping, trying to create a Gestapo state based on the military to augment these other agencies. We have this thing called the U.S. Code, right? Title 10, all these different title numbers that tell you what they're supposed to do. What's interesting to me is the United States military is not structured. It does not have the manpower to support domestic operations the way they're trying to do it. No. And all it's going to take is something that pops off overseas where you're like, well, they're over on the border in Texas. And you're going to be like, well, why are they on the border in Texas? Well, President Trump said there's an invasion coming. My question would be like, okay, what nation state? What nation state is invading the United States? And when they say there isn't one, it's the cartels or it's this, that, and the other, then I'm going to be like, this is illegal as hell. You can't have an invasion of a country unless you have a country invading.
Exactly.
Period. And we're not structured to do that. But he's trying to pass it off like these people are invading. I'm like, okay, well, what country are the people from? Well, they're from all over. Well, then it's not an invasion of people. It's not an invasion of nations. It's an immigration issue, and you need to have more judges and more asylum courts set up to process them quickly, effectively, and make sure you track where they go. Period. Problem solved. And then then you can have the military do what it's supposed to do. But right now, think about it like this: was it Task Force 54 out of North Carolina? You have to train them on rules of engagement on dealing with American citizens because we're not trained to do that. We're not. You send Marines down to LA, don't give them weapons. What? They're there for logistical support. Well, why? I don't.
Yeah, it's a lot of backwards thinking in the way that they're trying to implement a lot of the hard measures that have been used overseas on domestic. And the biggest problem that they still tend to forget to, well, here's one thing I actually noticed very specifically about how that whole thing went down is that they're attacking the sanctuary cities. But if you really truly notice where they're actually attacking, how is it that both Illinois in the area of Chicago and LA, California being the two most blue states, but the two most undergunned states, California's 10 round magazines, no handguns, no concealed carry. Chicago's entire ban on anything is like, this at this point, this isn't a deliberate thing. It's like these things are things that were like, go to Arkansas, go to Georgia. Let's be realistic. Go to Georgia. And then we'll see. Like I said, and this isn't an issue of fear mongering to the extent it's like we all should be having a weapon in regard. It's a personal safety situation at this point. Not so much of what it could happen. No, it's how long is it going to take before we feel it and it actually happens.
Well, the question that I would ask people is very simple. I would ask them, if you knew that your daughter or your wife could be snatched up at any time by people who refuse to identify themselves, what would you do to deter that?
Yeah.
What would you do? And I'm not trying to be a jerk about this, but this is now a reality for a significant segment of the population. There have been reports of women who have been assaulted by people perpetrating as ICE agents. The fact that Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, is saying that, we don't want to identify ourselves because these people may get doxxed, then that means you're probably not doing the job correctly. The police don't do that. Mm-hmm. They don't. And so the question that I would have is, how are you going to execute things where it's legal by identifying yourself, serving a warrant, unless you identify yourself and have a warrant? This whole, we'll arrest them and we'll sort it out later. That ain't it, bro. That's not how we do things in America. That is what happens in other countries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, but they don't care at this point. I think they are more about trying to get a certain number. They're trying to have the visual of the cruelty. Mm-hmm. And for lack of a better term, and this is the thing that I just think is crazy, if the country suffers as a whole because of it, so be it. It's the recalibration that needs to happen, because at the end of the day, this is a numbers game. White America will be outnumbered here in the next 10 years. They know it. So what they're trying to do is reset that number. That's Stephen Miller trying to reset the number, because they're fearful that if you have a majority of minorities, no matter how you gerrymander districts, they will be out of power. Mm-hmm. Based on the system that they have used for over 200 and almost 50 years now. And I get the fear. However, if you were all about the ideas that were put on paper in this thing called the Constitution, you would have nothing to fear. But there is an implicit acknowledgement of the superiority that has happened for 2 centuries, and that the numbers are what enabled that superiority to stay in place. And so they're trying to reset the numbers. They've been trying to do it since the 80s, since Reagan. But now they're at death's door with the numbers. They're like, oh my God, this is really happening. Mm-hmm. And they're targeting the number one and fastest growing demographic to throw it off, and that's Latinos in America.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
It's true.
That's it.
And here's where it's going to lead to my next question within that whole standard. So, like, you've served in the military. You've seen the entire diversity that actually is what is the entire naval forces at your 5-6 commands that you have been at. And here's one thing now that you're retired, you're seeing the current situation, and with the organization that you're working with to be able to create leaders is the biggest thing. as a black man, as a black man who has seen a certain level of segregation and just legitimate racism in Georgia, which we both know and understand that it still exists to this day.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of things happening within the past 5 years, from 2020 up until now. What are some of the biggest hurdles that you have faced with your legitimate background to be able to try to get this program going for effective leadership and for effective representatives?
A lot of things. And here's the thing that I think people need to understand. As much as I love the Navy, I love the military, there are still systemic inequities that happen. For example, when recruiters go out to recruit people to enlist, they hit the heavy minority schools first. When you look at where the JROTC units are in high schools, they are overwhelmingly in communities of color. They are not in the same number or proportions in the white, suburban, middle to upper class neighborhoods of America. Not even close. The New York Times did a very good article on it last year, very in depth. And you now have communities of color saying that the ROTC program, for the benefits that they present as far as discipline, this and other, are just feeders and creators of having a community of color be the bedrock of the enlisted force. And the reason this is a problem is because the recruiters go to these high schools, and this is someone who did recruiting for 3 years for the Naval Academy, and I was pissed when I did it. They never bring officer material to the schools. They don't bring ROTC scholarship materials. They don't bring service academy materials. They want you to enlist but not become leaders from day one. From day one, they don't bring it. They don't even have. If you go to your recruiter right now and you're wherever you are, right there in Norfolk, see how much officer material is there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, just think back to when you enlisted, right? Did they talk to you about becoming an officer? No matter what your SAT score, what happens is if you're smart enough to become an officer, they want you to be a nuclear sailor or nuclear propulsion or something else or intel or something like that. But they don't say officer. So from the beginning, you're set back. And so what happens? The majority of minority officers don't necessarily come from the academies ROTC. They're prior enlisted, and then they become and cross over and become officers. Now, while that sounds great, what happens is it costs them the 6 years at the beginning of their career to where now they'll retire as an 04 as opposed to an 05 in command. Big difference. Big difference. And so now they can't become 06s or admirals and generals because of the wasted time they had in the front half of their career where they should have been junior officers instead of mid to senior enlisted. Okay. So that's part of the systemic issue. Then on top of that, even the ones that do it like I did and my brother did or whatever, and go to a service academy, this, that, and the other, it is still directly disproportionate to the American population and, most importantly, the population of enlisted sailors, soldiers, airmen, Marines, guardsmen. It's not even close, right? And so when I graduated Annapolis and went into the Navy, I want to say there were 8% black officers, 8, single digit, as opposed to, the ridiculous numbers of other demographics. Meanwhile, at the same time, it was like 20% black enlisted. It's like, how's the discrepancy so large?
So if I may interject for a quick second.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to mute myself real quick just because I don't want to give away where I currently am serving at. But
yeah.
Actually, before I fully mute. So I've noticed this very specifically where I currently am at, and very specifically because of what I was attempting to do. And I'll go ahead. Just give me a quick second. Let me mute this, but it will still stay in the episode. So
yeah. Yep. Nope. Bingo. And ask yourself this question, especially with that group, because, I got buddies at Arsenal and I clown them all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, how is it that when you look at the Olympics, the best athletes in the world are people of color, but none of them in the SEAL teams?
Exactly.
And that makes sense to me.
Exactly. So saying what I said is like, there's a lot of situations that are currently happening, and like I said, I won't name anything specific, but people can Google them and they'll see what's currently going on.
Oh yeah, I've seen the scandal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So being very realistic, and I'll talk to you about this offline once we finish the interview. But it's very true. It's very true. There are very huge limitations to be able to see where people are coming from. But it's funny. It's funny that a lot of the people within this community, this very specific community that I'm talking about, are also from other parts of the world, but they are also Caucasian. They are also white.
There it is.
And here's a very specific, just so there's no situation. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is redacted for this exact same reason.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Huh.
So knowing that with that situation happening, it's a very little bit daunting if you actually ask me what were to happen if this information were to given out, or if his fellow service members don't know about this, right?
Right. Wow.
Exactly. So, and like I said, it's redacted for a very specific reason, and I'm not naming anything specific.
Yeah. No, I get it.
But just to go to show. And I remember this very specifically because, like I said, where I currently am, but also like I see the diversity of just in general where a lot of people are from. And like you were saying earlier, interpreters and everything, like I have a friend from Iraq. He literally came here from Iraq when he was 10 years old. His dad was an AC mechanic with the Army units. I have a picture, and I did his interview of his experience traveling to the States after the occupation of Iraq. He has nothing but good things to say about the U.S. military and the Army because he's gotten a good opportunity, but it still doesn't discount the fact that the United States invaded his country and displaced him.
Right. Exactly. And here's the thing. And this is the part that I wish if I could sit down and tell Hegseth anything, I'm like, the biggest, you came in the first day, you said diversity is our strength is the dumbest thing I ever heard. And I'm like, you're a complete idiot. Here's why. America is literally the only country in the world where our diversity, we can send any background to any part of the planet and they blend in. I go, you cannot be a superpower and send your damn white ass to Africa like I went and expect people to respect you. You're an idiot if you think you are. I go, the fact of the matter is, and I've explained this to older naval officers who are retired and like, why do you guys care so much about diversity? You can't be a superpower, right? And literally tell me, hey, I need to pay people in Afghanistan to be interpreters who could possibly frag me in the back. Or I could go to Dearborn, Michigan, where we have a large Arab American population where they understand the language and the culture but identify as Americans and utilize them instead. Why wouldn't we do that? Why would we send your Irish-looking behind to freaking Soweto in Africa? Why would we do that? And when you stop and think about it logically, of course we wouldn't. You know what? Russia can't do that. Mm-hmm. We can. China can't do that. We can. That's why we're the superpower. They're not. And if you don't see that from a strategic standpoint, your bigotry is impacting your ability to think properly. That is the problem. But see, when you lay it out like that logically, and I would go on, I pray one day I get on Fox News and be like, do you really think they're going to respect you, Brian Kilmeade? Really? In Liberia, where I was, after a civil war that involved children, child soldiers, and cannibalism? Yeah, let's send you down there to talk to them. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. And it's like, not taking into account the history of these countries, the colonization. Yeah, let's send you to Nicaragua. Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
really?
Just the biggest example of what's going on with Burkina Faso. You're seriously telling me that did not just happen for a very specific reason, and there's a reason why there's literally nobody within the prior occupying French nation in there trying to negotiate because they have
is like he is not playing.
Exactly. They have
Your
no
boy
ground
is
to stand
not
on.
playing. And to be honest, I respect the hell out of what he's doing. You know, I know he's a dictator, but dude, I'm like, this guy could change all of Africa if he keeps this up. All of it.
And I think here's one big thing that we still tend to forget that they don't understand, that our administration still doesn't understand, is that as military service members, regardless if you were logistics, if you were infantry, if you were aviation, if you were ships, or if you were ground troops, you respect the hell out of any person in the military in service. You respect the hell out of even more of any person in any other nation that has the fortitude to be able to try to stand up to a power and do what they do. So it's like this isn't praise. We're not saying, oh, we love the fact that he's a dictator. And it's just like, no, you understand, you recognize this person has some sort of very specific type of thought process that isn't seen in the conventional. It's in the unconventional. Right. And the military is the biggest unconventional thing in any nation.
I look at it like this. America looks at things so much now from just their perspective that if they took 2 seconds to flip it around, whether we're talking immigration, whether we're talking international relations, if they put their shoes on the other foot, right, I think they would better understand, like I said earlier, about the mom that's willing to go 2,000 miles on foot to escape what's in her world. Like, Captain Traore in Burkina Faso, who's like, you have raped and pillaged our land for hundreds of years. We're going to be self-sufficient. If this was a European country, the world would be all about backing them. All about backing them. But because it's sub-Saharan Africa, and for the first time, you have someone who's really like, this is what's going to happen. Dude, they tried, using him as an example, they tried to kill him. They had 12 different assassination plots. And his own people turned the people in like, hey, they offered me $5 million to kill you. Here's the dude.
Exactly.
Because in 3 years, they went from being, I want to say, 14% literate to 83% literate, because he's like, we will teach our people. We will have, it's a completely different ball game. And then he's like, bye, French, kicked them right out. Kicked them right out. And the world is like, who is this guy? And he's like, what, 35?
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, this is this, but here's the thing. If this was an American-backed dude, we would be singing his praises everywhere.
Exactly.
Everywhere. Because here's the thing. He's doing the thing that Americans talk about. They say they want so much: self-sufficiency. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Don't ask anybody else for help. That's exactly what they're doing in Burkina Faso right now. But because they told you, France, Europe, and even America, get the hell out of our country, you got a problem with it. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. And that's what we're watching currently in the United States, with leadership that is trying to have it every way but the right way, in my opinion. So to wrap all of this up, because I've been talking your ear off for a while.
No, you're good.
I just want people to hold their water, keep the faith, because we've seen times like this before, just in a kind of a different way. I think everything is amplified because now everybody has a camera on them, and you can see this. This is not hearsay. And the cruelty is in 4K. It's in 4K. And it's forcing America to ask itself a very hard question. Are we about ideas, or are we about looks and appearances? Are we about freedom for all? Or are we about one group being superior to another? Are we about the intent of why someone wants to be an American? Or are we going to get caught up in the semantics of, we don't want them here because we're afraid they may overtake us? Because that's what this is coming down to. We have been here at the turn of the 20th century, when the mass immigration from Europe happened. What people need to understand is those that came from areas like Eastern Europe, this, that, and the other, they weren't considered classical white. The Italians weren't considered classical white. They were considered swarthy. That was the term they used, all this stuff. And as more immigration happened over the 20th century of darker pigmentation people, Italians magically became white. Irish became white. People from the Caucasus regions became white. All of that because they were trying to keep the numbers in a certain way to balance the power. And it worked for the 20th century. Now we're at that point where it's no longer going to happen. The combination of black, brown, yellow is going to overcome that number. And the deportations, and amongst the most vulnerable too. Again, they may come after blacks and Asians eventually, but they're going after the most vulnerable, the Latinos. They know that. They're trying to keep the number, to keep the majority, and Medicaid going away, affecting that. All these things that disproportionately affect poorer people, or more oppressed class people. That is also strategic by design, Project 2025, et cetera, et cetera. What I will tell people is hold your water, keep your faith. A lot of families did a lot to get to the United States, and even more to earn their place in the United States. Lean on that heritage. Remember that. Black, white, red, yellow, it doesn't matter. Everybody has a story. And the reason that your family decided to come here is because they wanted better for you and your descendants. And they believed in the words that were put on that damn Constitution. Okay? Don't be intimidated out of it. Continue to try to do things legally. Don't try to be violent, but damn it, make your voice heard at the same time, because no one is going to sit there and tolerate this. I wouldn't, you shouldn't, and no one else should. But this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
No, it's very true. And honestly, there's no better way to put it at this point in time, especially from, like I said, somebody I respect so much with the way your leadership is, but also like in the same way, we understand it from our perspective.
Yep.
Like I said, it's.
I appreciate you saying that, man.
No, like it's legitimately like I said, out of the leaders that I have been able to serve under, and our time on Anzio, like I said, I respect the hell out of you, Mr. Jones, just because it's a lot of things that you've won as yourself as a black man have gone through, but also, like I said, like you said earlier, there's a way to being a commanding officer, being responsible for your people and taking accountability for them, and on top of that, being able to know and understand that your experience and your entire livelihood of what you have been able to accomplish has been within the service of the nation, and you can now keep going and put that through to be able to help other people with your platforms. So, I mean, I guess you're right. I guess we can just kind of close it off in this close one. So, but just as a final thing. So, Mr. Bobby R. Jones, Commander retired from the United States Navy. We can find him on what do you call it? On the Gedunk
podcast on YouTube. Just type in GEDUNK and it'll pop up. Valor Media Network, and then also Saturday mornings. By the time Saturday morning rolls around, you'll see me on Midas Touch Network posting something. And then finally, the thing that I'm really getting into on Lincoln Square Lincoln Project is I have a weekly Tuesday at noon live stream where you can ask me any questions of what happened during the week, and it's been fascinating to see different people's perspectives on what we're seeing in real time, and that's fun to do. But yeah, anytime you need me back, man, just let me know, because I love talking about this stuff, but more importantly, I like formulating plans of action so we can do stuff.
Oh yeah, no,
that's the cool thing.
Definitely. I'm working on a lot of projects as of lately. And like I said, working with, I'm actually re-volunteering again with the Repatriate Our Patriots for the deported veterans. So in a whole sense, like I said, I'll definitely find another topic for us to be able to come back. And then maybe we could even invite Dan to be able to do like a roundtable and just hash a couple things over and get also his point of view. If I could get his information later. But
Dan is, I mean, dude, you talk about been there and done it.
Oh yeah.
You gotta have we gotta have him on. He's fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, not a problem. So we'll just go ahead. Yeah. So I mean, at that point, we've already covered a good amount. So we'll go ahead and close off this episode of En Mi Comunidad, in my community, with Mr. Bobby R. Jones. Like I said, my former XO and my former executive officer on the ship. Yeah. And like I said, a very well respected member of the independent journalist community. For sure.
I appreciate it, man. So keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm excited to see what else happens with you moving forward. This is awesome.
Oh, of course. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead. We'll close it off. So go ahead and have yourself a good rest of your evening.
Thanks, guys.